What's up, kings and queens? It's Dan from Daft Previews, and in this video, I'm going to take you through the most comprehensive NBA player prop video you are going to see today, and it's for all 5 games on this upcoming slate. I'll be going through all the key players and their props and their lines, plus I'm also going to share my script on how I think that game's going to play out. As always, I'll be sharing my screen. I'll take you through an app called props.cash. If you're interested in taking your own research to the next level, you can sign up today and get 25% off your first month using the code DAFT25. Let's go!
Sub to the channel cause your boy's getting busy. Coming to you live from the west side of Sydney. We've got the free picks and the juice on the daily. It's all free, you don't even have to pay me.
We're kicking it off with the OKC Thunder versus Detroit Pistons. Now, Cade Cunningham's a game-time decision, but he is more likely to play. In this game, I think the Thunder are going to maul the Pistons. The Pistons are on a back-to-back. They just lost to Washington. OKC, they just took the number 1 seed in the West. I think we're going to see them flex on the Pistons here. So potential blowout risk where their starters don't play many minutes. But let's jump into the preview. We'll get through all the key players, starting off with Cade Cunningham. If he does play, let's have a look to see what we're looking at here. Firstly, looking at his points line, he's covered in 20.5 in 7 of his last 10, averaging 24.2. But obviously that last game was his first game back in about 20 days against the Washington Wizards. And in that game, he scored 20 points. He played 35 minutes, so there's no minutes restriction. He attempted 17 shots and he made 7. So is there a little bit of rust there for Cade Cunningham? Potentially. In head-to-head matchups against the OKC Thunder, though, we can see he scored 21 and 17 in his last 2 against them. Checking his boards, he had 4 rebounds in that last game, but he hasn't been a consistent rebounder all year. And against OKC, 1 of 2. And looking at his assists, he had 12 assists in that game against the Washington Wizards, which is pretty brilliant. And some pretty solid games before he got injured. But in his 2 games against OKC, obviously 1 from 2. So 1 from 2 in his points, rebounds, and assist prop against the OKC Thunder. So I don't know. I'm not feeling anything for Cade Cunningham, even if he does play. Jalen Duren's got a good matchup with Chet, meaning, it's not an easy matchup. Chet's long as hell, but doesn't have as much size on his body just yet. But Jalen Duren has covered his points line in 7 of his last 10, but he has gone under in 3 consecutive games against the Oklahoma City Thunder. Rebound-wise, has only had 2 great rebounding games, and they both just happen to be against the Washington Wizards. He's struggled against everybody else in head-to-head matchups against OKC, 4, 6, and 7. So I'm strongly leaning on taking the under. The blowout risk is there. The form against the opponent is there. And even his recent form, you can say, is there. He's only hitting this against the Washington Wizards. He's only hit this line in 11 games this year. So leaning the under on Jalen Duren already. But who else is there? SGA. Let's take a look at this man. So looking at his last 10 games, he's averaging 29.9 points. 32.5 points is his line. Against the Detroit Pistons, scored 33 and 32. I feel like no matter what happens, he's always finishing around 30. Even, I forgot what game it was, but it was a clear blowout. And I bet on Josh Giddey to get some rebounds. He didn't play the 4th quarter, and they were up by like 16 points, and SGA checked in with 6 minutes to go. Like, there's something out there for him to just keep scoring 30-plus points. It's a strange one for me. But rebound-wise, 4 of his last 10, averaging 4.2. Has rebounded extremely well against the Pistons, 7 and 9. Assist-wise, he's gone under both games against the Pistons, and in his last 10, he's covered in 4 of 10. So that's a pretty interesting one, his rebound one against the Pistons. Not enough for me to take it, but it is interesting nonetheless. Who else have we got here? Let's have a look at Jalen Williams. Jalen Williams, 18.5 is his points prop. He's covered in 7 of his last 10, averaging 20. Last 3 games against the Pistons, he's gone over twice. Rebound-wise, he went over in his last 2. And in his last 10 games, he's gone over 5 times, averaging 4.9 rebounds. Assist-wise, 6 of his last 10, averaging 5.8 assists. His line's at 5.5, though. Seems quite high. And head-to-head matchups, he's gone over in his last 2 as well. So, interesting form lines for Jalen Williams in this one. There's nothing that screams out to me, though, because I'm so worried about the blowout. I think what would be good to do is check the scores when they last met. Were these games blowout? Because that lets us... Well, actually, I can check right here. He played 31 minutes and 37 minutes. So 37 minutes tells me this game wasn't a blowout. 31 minutes in this game tells me that there was a chance. Let's check SGA's minutes in that game. He played 32 minutes. So I think there probably was a blowout, actually. 4 to 5 minutes less than they would normally play. Josh Giddey, the man from down under, capable of a triple-double, but also capable of not playing in the fourth quarter, apparently. So he's covered his points line in 2 of his last 3 against the Pistons. In his last 10, he's only covered it 4 times, averaging 9.9. Rebound-wise, he's covered that in 6 of his last 10, averaging 7 boards. Head-to-head matchups, 2 of his last 3, averaging 6. Assist-wise, he's only covered it once against them. And looking at the last 10, he's only covered in 3 of his last 10. So Bogdanovic, let's check his points. We know he can get some buckets. 5 of his last 10 he's covered in. 1 game against OKC. Back in 2022, though, scored 22 points. So nothing screaming out to me there. No props on Jaden Ivey. Obviously, we're waiting to see Cade Cunningham's status on that one. But let's jump into the next game, shall we? I want to talk through the Grizzlies versus the Pacers. That's what I'm looking for. Memphis versus the Indiana Pacers. So the Grizzlies, they're in pretty good form, I've got to say. They've won 3 straight despite all of their injuries. The Pacers, we know they don't play any defense at all, and the Grizzlies still do. So the problem there is that the Grizzlies don't score many points, and the Pacers have one of the best offenses in the league. So the opposing strengths and weaknesses of each team, I believe, is going to keep this game quite close. I think Tyrese Halliburton's not playing, so that obviously leans to Memphis, keeping it even closer. Let's have a look at all their players. Miles Turner's the first one. We'll check his points and his rebounds. In his last 10, he's covered in 5 of those games, averaging 14.9. 2 head-to-head matchups against the Grizzlies, he scored 15 points on the dot. Well, that's a bit risky. Rebound-wise, 3 of his last 10, averaging 6. And he's gone under in both games against the Grizzlies. Nembhard filling in for Halliburton. Let's check his assist prop. Last 10 is what I'm probably more interested in. He's covered in 5 of his last 10, averaging 5.5 assists per game. But the Memphis Grizzlies don't allow many assists, so wouldn't be confident in taking many Pacers players for assists. Let's check Spicy P. Assist-wise, he's covered in 4 of his last 10. I think he's played 4 games with the Indiana Pacers, so 2 of his last 4. Head-to-head matchups against the Grizzlies, 2 out of 3. Rebound-wise, he's covered in 2 of his 4 games with the Pacers, but only 2 in his last 10. And up against the Grizzlies, 1 in his last 3. Points-wise, he's covered that in 2 of 4 games with the Pacers. His last 2 have been great. And then up against the Grizzlies, 25, 19, and 24 points. So line set at 22.5 for Pascal here. So what will be really interesting to see which team controls the pace. Is the game really fast the way the Pacers want it? Or is it a little bit slow the way that the Grizzlies want to play? So interesting. So Pascal, I'm sure he's going to do something to get involved in this game. I'm probably leaning towards his points. He's only playing 30, 32, 32, 30. So about 31 minutes per game in a Pacers uniform. He did take 22 shots against the Phoenix Suns, which is pretty crazy. Is that him setting in? Was it a good matchup? I'm not too sure. But he shot a pretty good field goal percentage his last 2 games. I wonder if it's just the Halliburton factor. Maybe just shoots better without Halliburton there, to be honest. One to think about. Who else have we got in this game? Jaren Jackson Jr. His line is set at 30.5 points, which is crazy. He's hit that in 5 of 43 games this year. So obviously the odds makers lifting his line, knowing the Pacers do play at a high pace. But he's only hit that 5 times this year and only 12 times in his last 112 games. So 11% of the time he cashes this over. Let's talk about it. He's hit it in 2 of his last 10, averaging 25. The last 3 games against the Pacers, he's gone under in all 3. 30.5. Look, I wouldn't say he's not capable of it. The Pacers give up a lot of points, especially on the interior. So I can see Jaren Jackson getting some buckets, but that's too high for me to take. Rebounds and assist-wise, we know he doesn't do any of those, so I'm not going to waste anybody's time by looking through that. And probably the only person worth looking at is Vince Williams Jr. So if you caught Vince Williams on the rise early, you would have seen him. He had lines of like 9.5, and he was going pretty hard once he's making that starting lineup. I think the line's about right at 14.5. He's hit this in 5 of his last 10. Rebound-wise, 6.5 rebound line. He's hit that in 5 of his last 10. And assist-wise, 3 of his last 10. So I think the value on Vince Williams is gone. The lines are pretty sharp. So I won't be making a play for Vince in this one. But let's jump into the next game. Hopefully there's some juice in this one. We're looking at the Toronto Raptors versus the Atlanta Hawks. So both teams have been ass lately. The Hawks losing 4 straight. The Raptors have lost 8 of their last 9. Now, Emmanuel Quickly is out for this game, and Jakob Poeltl is a game-time decision, so he could be back. But I think the main thing for me is that both teams are just struggling right now. But the Hawks are at home. They are capable of putting up a lot more points. I think Atlanta win at home, but they find a way to choke games all the time. So we shall see. First player looking at those, Trae Young. Let's check Trae out. He's back from his concussion. First game back was against Dallas. He scored 30. But he's covered his points line in 4 of his last 10. Against the Raptors, though, he's covered in 4 straight. He's had some very strong games. So to see his line at 25.5, somewhat arousing. So we can see here his line against Dallas was about 22.5. Line set at 25.5 for this game. For the majority of his last 10 games, the line was set at about 27.5 to 28.5. Depending on his matchup, 29.5. So to get Trae Young at 25.5 feels like a steal to me, especially against a Raptors team who's struggling at the moment. So I don't mind that. Rebound wise, we're not looking at Trae Young's boards. You crazy? Assist wise, he's covered this in 5 of his last 10, averaging 9.4, 11 assists in that game against the Dallas Mavericks. Against the Raptors, has had some very strong assist games, averaging 11.8 in 5 games against the Raptors. So I think one thing I might even play is his points and his assist line. You can see that he's hit that in 4 straight against the Raptors. That pretty much aligns with his points. But he can really fill up the stat sheet here. And if there's a chance that he can get 14 to 15 assists and he doesn't happen to get the points, that should help us get over. So I don't mind that. Points and assists. Looking at the last 10, it's not very convincing. Only 4 of his last 10. But hopefully whatever rust he had after that concussion, he shook off against Dallas. And he comes back and he puts it on the Toronto Raptors the way that he always has. So I'm liking Trae Young in this one. Clint Capella, who used to be a lock for looking at his rebounds, but it's not looking so good anymore. But the line's at 9.5. He's covered in 5 of his last 10. Against the Raptors, he's gone over in 3 straight. So I was just thinking about, do you wait till Jakob Poeltl is ruled in or out, or do you take him regardless? Because I'm assuming in these games here, I'm not going to make assumptions. Let's just click on it. I was going to say, I assume Jakob Poeltl was playing, but oops, clicked on the wrong player. So props.cash tells me Jakob Poeltl played in 2 games against them. And Capella got 10 and 15 rebounds with Jakob Poeltl there. Without Poeltl, he had 14 rebounds and 5. But these were in 2022. So the 2 most recent games Jakob Poeltl was part of, Clint Capella got 10 and 15 rebounds. So he's done it before. Over his last 10, he's been okay. Not the strongest read, but yeah, I don't hate that from Clint Capella. Looking at his boards. Sadiq Bey, I had a quick look at this before. Nothing too convincing. He has hit his rebound line in 4 straight. And against the Raptors, he's hit it against them in his last 2. But I think he was playing power forward in those games. So he's playing the 3 now. And his rebounds are dropping a little bit. Points-wise, he's a bit inconsistent. Chasing this 13.5. 6 of his last 10, though. But against the Raptors, he's gone under in all 3. Jalen Johnson, he's been very good recently. I'd ignore the stats against the Raptors. They were all last year. But looking at his points line over his last 10, he's hit it 4 times, averaging 16.4 points per game. His last 2 have been strong against Golden State and the Dallas Mavericks. The Toronto Raptors, I'm not too sure. They do have some length. They probably have Scotty Barnes defending him, so won't be the easiest matchup for Jalen Johnson. But he's also a good rebounder, but even his rebounding is a little bit inconsistent. His line's at 8.5. He's hit that 14 out of 31 games. He's averaging 7.8. So there's nothing in this that tells me Jalen Johnson goes over or under. I just feel like the line's a little bit too high for me. Let's have a look at Scotty Barnes. Points-wise, he's covered in 2 of his last 10, averaging 17.8. So he's seen a lift in his line, obviously because Emmanuel Quickly's not in. Rebound-wise, he's hit this in 2 of his last 10. He's rebounding pretty bad since Siakam left, I've got to say. Head-to-head matchups, he's gone over in 3 of his last 5. I don't think I did his points. Points-wise, he's gone over in 3 of his last 5 against the Hawks as well. Assist-wise, 3 of his last 5 against the Hawks. But in his last 10, 5.3 assists per game. So, interesting. Looking at his PRA, he's only covered that in 2 of his last 10. Haven't been a big fan of Scotty Barnes, to be honest, since Siakam left. He hasn't excited me anymore. So, nothing on here that I like. Let's have a look at DeJounte Murray. Points-wise, he's been good. 6 of his last 10 that he's covered. He scored 20-plus in 8 of his last 10 games. Against the Raptors, he's averaging 20 points per game, but he's only covered his actual line of 22.5 once. Rebound-wise, 3 good rebounding games against the Raptors. Over his last 10, he's hit this 4 times. Assist-wise, he's covered it in 4 of his last 10, averaging 5.3 assists. He has covered it in 3 straight. In head-to-head matchups, he's covered in 3 of his last 5 as well. So there's nothing very strong in that. Maybe if we filter it with Trae Young, because we know Trae Young's had a bit of time off. Did he play all games? Trae Young was present for all of those games against the Raptors. So, all right, DeJounte. Nothing screaming out to me there, my boy. RJ Barrett, let's have a look at him. His line's gone up because no quickly. He's covered his points line in 1 of 5 against against the Hawks. And in his last 10, he's covered this 5 times, averaging 22.6. Rebound-wise, he's surprised me. He's done quite well. 7.2 rebounds per game in his last 10. Against the Atlanta Hawks, he's only hit this once. But keeping in mind, all of these games was when he was a Knick. So things are a little bit different now. That he's a Raptor. So his rebounds have been pretty good. Assist-wise, 7 of his last 10, he's hit this 3.5 line. Not too bad, 3.9. And he had 6 assists in his last game against the Atlanta Hawks. So for this game, probably liking Trae Young the most. Clint Capella rebounds interest me. And RJ Barrett rebounds, not too bad either. Now, let's pump the brakes for a minute. Now, firstly, I want to say thanks to the community because this channel is starting to blow up slowly but surely. We hit over 2,500 subscribers in the last video, so I thank you all. Our next step is 3,000. I've also got a question for you. I've had many requests come through my inbox on Discord and even a few by email. And it's all about this ladder challenge stuff. It started to die down. It's probably not as popular anymore, but I get a lot of requests of people asking me to do it. So now's your chance to let me know. Do you guys think I should run a ladder challenge? It'll probably on YouTube Shorts. But let me know in the comment section below. I'll do it if you guys want it, and I won't do it if you don't want me to. Nice and easy. So let's get back into the preview. We're looking at the Phoenix Suns versus the Orlando Magic, and Bradley Beal and Yusuf Nurkic are game time decisions. The Suns, their offense has been hot in recent times, and I expect them to get the win over the Orlando Magic at home. Orlando's offense hasn't been great. They don't move the ball. They actually turn it over quite a lot. And their defense, which has been pretty good all year, it has been starting to get a little bit shaky as of late. So I do like the Suns in this one. But let's get straight into the player prop, shall we? Let's start with KD, Slim Reaper, easy money sniper. Looking at his points. He's covered his points line in 3 of his last 10 games. But in 2 games against the Orlando Magic, he scored 45 and 31 points. That 31 points was this season. Rebound-wise, 7 and 5 against the Magic. In his last 10, he's averaging 6.9 rebounds per game. Looking at his assists, he's averaging 4.7 in his last 10, covering this 6 times, and he's covered it in both games against the Orlando Magic. Paolo Banchero. Let's have a look at Banchero. Now, he's gone under his 23.5 point line 6 of his last 10. He's averaging 22.3 points per game. 2 games against the Phoenix Suns, 18 and 28. So 28 was this season. Pretty strong game from him then. Rebound-wise, 8 and 9. And in his last 10, he's hit this 5 times, averaging 6.5 rebounds per game. Assist-wise, he's gone over in 5 of 10, averaging 4.8. And against the Phoenix Suns, 7 assists in his last matchup, 3 in the one prior. So, yeah, look, he's pretty inconsistent, Banchero, but with the right matchup, he can do quite a bit of damage. I have faded him quite a bit lately. Franz Wagner's back in, so his line's naturally dropped a little bit. But I think it helps Banchero a little bit, but not man enough to make a play on it just yet. Speaking of Franz, let's talk about him. His points line's 19.5. He's gone over in 6 of his last 10, but he has gone under in 4 straight. So he got injured in that game against the Sacramento Kings here. He came back from injury against Miami, and he's played 3 games since, and he's failed to cover this line since returning. In his head-to-head matchups against the Suns, 27 more recently, a couple of weeks ago, and then 2 games of going under. Looking at his rebound prop, he's covered in 7 of his last 10, but only 1 of his last 4. Line's only 4.5. I'm actually going to check his minutes. So 27, 24, and 38 minutes. So possibly some sort of minutes restriction or foul trouble or something. But last game against the Grizzlies, got back to his full complement, 38 minutes per game. So maybe checking those stats against the Grizz, give us the best idea of where Franz is actually at. So he scored 18 points, 5 rebounds, 4 assists. His line's at 3.5. He's covered that in 4 of his last 10. And against the Suns, he did cover it. So his last game against the Suns, what did he do? 27 points, 7 rebounds, and 6 assists. So Franz filled up the stat sheet in his last game against Phoenix. I wonder if he can do it again. Let's have a look at Bradley Beal. I know he's a game time decision, so I'll just look at his points. Scored 25 points in his last game against the Magic. In his last 10, he's covered in 5 of those games, averaging 18.8 points per game. So I don't think they need to force him to play, to be honest. They should get the win without him. Devin Booker just had 62 points. He's got 40-plus points in 3 of his last 5 games, which is pretty crazy. He's covered this line in 5 of his last 10, averaging 32.7. Head-to-head matchups, he's gone under in all 3 games against the Orlando Magic. He's playing the minutes. He's only taking about 17 shots, though, but he hasn't shot the ball very well against them. Looking at his last 5 games, though, what's he shooting in those? So he took 37 shots against the Pacers, 23 against Dallas. So he's not afraid to put them up, but yeah, it's tough. This Phoenix Suns team, I've got to admit, tough team to bet on. Assist-wise, let's have a look. Over his last 10, he's hit this line 4 times, averaging 6.1 assists per game, and he's gone under in all 3 games against the Orlando Magic. Looking at his PRA, it's at 42.5. He's averaging 29 PRA in 3 games against the Orlando Magic. And over his last 10, he's averaging 42.9 PRA. So, I don't know. Devin Booker's on fire right now. I'm not brave enough to fade him, but I'm also smart enough not to bet on him. Let me tell you. Outside of that, let's jump into the next game, which is the final one. It's the Chicago Bulls versus the Portland Trail Blazers. Now, there's limited markets at the moment, and you can blame the Portland Trail Blazers. Brogdon, Simons, Grant, Walker, Henderson, they're all game time decisions. So, look, given the volume of injuries the Blazers have, I have to side with the Bulls to get the win here. The Bulls are actually still in a fight for a playoff spot. I think they're at 9th, I believe. Let me check. Yeah, they're at 9th. They're behind Orlando and above Brooklyn. So they're still in the fight, so they have an incentive to keep playing. Whereas the Blazers, not in contention to win nothing, and they actually have some injuries. So the Bulls will win. I just don't know how much. Let's have a look at these Bulls players. Nikola Vucevic is the first one. Let's check out his points prop. 17.5 points. He's covered that in 6 of his last 10, averaging 17.9 points. He's done well against the Blazers. Last 2 games, 23 points in each of them. Rebound-wise, 11 and 15. In his last 10, he's hit this 4 times, averaging 11.5. Assist-wise, 5 times, averaging 3.9 assists per game. And in 2 games against the Trailblazers, he got 4 assists. So nothing spectacular there. Let's check out DeMar DeRozan. 27 points the last time he versed the Trailblazers. He's only covered his points line in 2 of his last 10. And rebound-wise, he's only covered in 5 of his last 10, averaging 4.6 rebounds. And he had 7 rebounds in his last matchup against the Trailblazers. Assist-wise, had 10 assists against the Lakers. Has hit this line in 5 out of his last 10, averaging 5.6 assists per game. And he had 7 assists in that last game against Portland. So Portland do give up a lot of assists and a lot of rebounds. I know that for sure. Despite how bad they play, they actually don't leak as many points as you would think. And the Bulls do play a little bit slow. So rebounds, assists, more so rebounds, I don't mind. Let's shout Kobe White. Kobe White, we know Zach LaVine's not in this game, so Kobe has some opportunity here. But his line's at 23.5. He's hit this in 5 of his last 10. 2 games against Portland. He was playing off the bench, so I won't look at his head-to-head stats against them. But 22.8 over his last 10. I'm not too sure about that one. Rebound-wise, his line's at 5.5.
He's covered this in 5 of his last 10. So if we filter this without Zach LaVine, what happens? What does it show us? It doesn't get much better. So he's averaging 5.8 in his last 10 without Zach LaVine. What about Patrick Williams? Has he been out long? No, he's only missed a few games. Okay. Kobe White's assists, let's check that out. His last 10, he's averaging 5.4 assists per game. He's hit this line 6 times in his last 10 games. Head-to-head matchups, again, not so important, are they? But yeah, there's nothing I'm really loving so far out of these props. If I was to play them down a little bit, like Kobe White for 4 rebounds, for example, his line's at 5.5. So he's hit 5.5 rebounds. Let me filter without Zach LaVine. 21 games without Zach LaVine. He's hit 5.5 11 times. If we take his over 3.5 rebounds, he's hit this in 20 of 21 games. So I don't mind that. Could be something good for your parlays. If you could get 5, what happens there? 14 out of 21. So 4 is the really magic number. Goes from 95% to 67%. So Kobe White for 4 rebounds. That's not too bad, but probably the odds are going to be shit. Vucevic. Don't like betting on Vucevic, DeRozan, and I hate betting on DeRozan. So DeAndre Ayton, I don't mind betting on. He's been playing quite well as of late, but look, you've got to wait for these lines to come out. So we shall see. So those are the previews for all the games and on this upcoming slate. As always, check the pinned comments for my final picks on these games. Let's jump into a recap so we can talk about the last day. The spreadsheet is up to date, so let me take you all through that right now. What have I got filtered here? So on the season, we're down to 40.1 units. It's been a disastrous January, 11.5 units. As you can see, first losing month of the year. My last video, I did switch up the strategy a little bit. I stopped talking about matchups, just previewed the players as they are. Put my picks up. I think I finished 2 points. Let's go through it. It's not going to show it here unless I filter it. 2.5 units, I believe, on the day. Let me check. That's a lie. 2.16 units profit yesterday from 9 bets. So a lot of the reads were quite good. So I'm ditching the matchups and just doing the previews, finding what I like, diving a little bit deeper. So it's gone quite well. So ride with me. I need to get this ROI back over 10%. It's been a disastrous January. Got a couple of days left. Hopefully we scoop back a few units and then we roll into February on fire. But recapping what happened, what have we got here? First pick that landed, I believe. What am I looking at here? 28th is what I'm looking for. Here it is. So the first one, Kyle Kuzma over 6.5 rebounds, finishes on 6. In that game, I predicted the Wizards were going to win on the road against the Pistons. I didn't play that, but Kuzma got me on the hook. I was a bit hesitant about playing it. I don't know why I did. It was the first thing I added to the slip. And when I went back to delete the ones I didn't like, I was still uncertain. So the lesson there is if I'm still unsure, just remove it. Far out. There are a lot of other bets to go around. The next one is Jalen Brunson, over 26.5. That cashed quite easily. Nikola Jokic, over points and rebounds. So that cashed quite easy as well. He had a monster down the boards. We did fail on his value play, though. He finished on 26 points and like 15 rebounds, and he went under in his assists too. So that was a real close one. That could have helped us claw back quite a bit. Or that would have been like 3 to 4 units profit just there. Kawhi Leonard, we took his unders. I didn't think it would happen in the way that it did, but, the Clippers blew out the Boston Celtics. Kawhi finishes on 26. So happy with that. Take the win. Took Jonas Valanciunas over some points. He finished with 13. He had a pretty strong start, so I was pretty confident in that one. Brook Lopez had a monster game today, but it wasn't on rebounds. He only had 3 rebounds. I think Dame had like 6 rebounds, so that was a kick in the guts. D'Lo, I was surprised to see this one hit because at halftime I had given up. I was like, I'm not even going to check the stats for this anymore. I went outside, washed my car for about 3 hours, and then, checked my phone and the game was still going on. Double OT. I actually tuned in to see Steph Curry shot and LeBron's free throws, but when I checked the stats, D'Lo well up his points line, so we'll take the win. And then the last one, Jaylen Brown. I saw someone left a comment in my last video saying that Porzingis is out. So then I immediately jumped on Jaylen Brown's points, and he was terrible. The whole Boston Celtics team was terrible, so that killed us as well. But in a bit of a groove, I'm feeling quite confident leading into tomorrow, so you know what to do. Check the pinned comments. That's where my final bets are going to be. But if you do have a few minutes or you're interested in seeing how props.cash works, I've done a full walkthrough. I've got a full guide up here. So just click on this video and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.